Alex Jones comes back to Twitter, or X, whichever you just prefer to call it, much to the chagrin of many people on the left. But we'll be talking about what led Elon to do this, what's happening now that he is back, and where we go from there. And, by the way, a prominent civil rights lawyer who is quitting X because Alex has returned. We'll go over some of that, what's happening there, and where we go with that. A Texas abortion ban leads a woman to leave the state for what she calls an emergency abortion. We'll go over the details of that, what the left is telling you, what's actually happening with this, and what this means for the argument going on. Volodymyr Zelensky comes to Capitol Hill again to beg and plead for weapons, but he might already be ready for some peace talks. We're going to go over some of that, what's going on there, and what's happening with that. And Kevin McCarthy is out, shrinking the Republican majority in the House to 1, which is going to make some fireworks coming up into this upcoming election year. We'll be going over that, plus the debate, some things that are going on with that, and some primary shenanigans. We've got a lot to go over here tonight, so strap yourselves in, get some snacks, get some friends in here, but don't look away because you might miss a little bit. We're going to have to fly through this one here. And Mary, did you know that your baby boy will give sight to a blind man? And when you kiss your little baby, you kiss the face of God. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Yeah, we were definitely dropping some frames out there starting off here. That was just on the live free run up here. Doesn't look like we dropped any frames after everything got started, but I actually might have to start closing some tabs as we go here today. I know I try to keep them open in case people do want some of the source here. I want to share some of them back over to the Discord, which, by the way, join the Discord if you haven't already, if you're watching this. The link is in the description, whether you're watching live or on the replay. Just about everywhere that you go, you can find it on Twitch, over on DLive, you can find it on YouTube and in Rumble, and in the audio platform if you are on Spotify. It's also in the description there, so come back in and join us. Put your 2 cents into the things that you want to see, and of course, you can always add what it is that you want to see coming up here. We've got a lot to go over here today. We're going to talk about some of the debate stuff, some primary shenanigans, especially with Iowa coming up in the crosshairs. That's just like a month and a half out, by the way, so we'll be talking about that, what's happening there. Some stuff in foreign news, including Zelensky coming over to Capitol Hill, and Hunter Biden actually filing a motion to dismiss an indictment on gun charges, saying that it violates his Second Amendment rights, meanwhile cheerleading for people who committed no crimes to have their Second Amendment rights taken away. So we'll be going over some of that, what's happening here, what this means, and a lot of stuff to go over here today. Plus, we've got things I like and things that I hate coming up here. It's going to be a wild time. This is actually going to be quite a wild contemporary, especially with the lead story. So get some friends, get some people in here, and let's go ahead and get started here tonight. As always, you can chat in all the live chats. You can come in and put your 2 cents in. I try to read chat between articles, but sometimes it's pressing and sometimes we got to get to it right away. If you are on the main platforms, your chat will appear on the screen. If you're on Rumble, you are safe from the YouTube censors and they will not show up on the screen. But and of course, I will kind of measure what it is that I can and cannot say as we go. And let's get into it. Let's get started. We're going to start today with the big news of the day. Elon Musk reactivates Alex Jones' X account after a 5-year ban that long precedes Elon Musk. Now, this is actually pretty big because Elon first out said that he was never going to because of the things that Alex said about Sandy Hook, about the things that were going on with that. So this is big news. This is something that we absolutely do need to be paying attention to, and this may be another jump forward into the culture war. So we've got some things to go over here. We're going to read from CNBC to start with today. Elon Musk reactivates Alex Jones' X account after a 5-year ban from Laura Kolodny, Rebecca Picciotto. Elon Musk on Sunday reinstated the account of conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on X, formerly known as Twitter, reneging on a year-ago vow to keep Jones off the social network. Jones was previously suspended from Twitter in 2018 for violating the company's abusive behavior policy. That suspension, deemed permanent under the company's prior management, came as Jones faced a defamation lawsuit for spreading the false claim that the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was a hoax. Musk's decision to bring Jones back to X comes on the anniversary week of the Sandy Hook shooting. Now, it's very interesting, and it's actually very important for us to point this out, because CNBC juxtaposed the two of these things together like they actually had something to fucking do with each other. They didn't. The thing with Alex Jones being suspended from Twitter is it had nothing to do with Sandy Hook. It had nothing to do with him going after the parents. It had nothing to do with him attacking witnesses in the case and the defamation lawsuit against this. Alex Jones was banned from Twitter for getting in a fight with Oliver Darcy. It had nothing to do with Sandy Hook. Oliver Darcy went out, and if I remember my history correctly, and of course, the mainstream media is not going to put any of this up there on the screen and let us know what actually happened with all this, but if I remember correctly, Darcy sought Jones out and was goading and pushing Jones, and Jones was the one who went over the edge, obviously, because that's the kind of thing that he does. And oops, he's got a permaban for going after Oliver Darcy, which, I mean, Oliver Darcy does go hand in hand with doing the bidding of the current White House and whatever was sitting out there waiting to put the current administration into the current White House, as we see. Darcy has actually come out and admitted to this, that they work hand in hand to make sure that the economic messaging goes off the way that the White House wants it. So, of course, him also being the main censor that got rid of Jones, that's got an air of irony that went around it too. But, I mean, CNBC, CNN, Politico, they're all going to come out here and tell you that this is all about Sandy Hook, that this has nothing to do with anything else, and that is a load of bullshit. And I will come back out and say that right off the bat. That is a full load of bullshit. I think the timing was a little bit interesting for Elon to do this, especially given the fact that, of course, the reinstatement happened, as they said, during the week of Sandy Hook. But it's another one of those things that gets people talking, gets people arguing, and drives the engagement over on Twitter, which is what pays the bills and keeps the fucking lights on over at Twitter. Although 20 children and 6 educators were killed by a gunman at Sandy Hook's in Newtown, Connecticut, Jones had falsely and reportedly said on his show, InfoWars, that the shooting never really happened and was a staged event designed to bring about stricter gun laws. InfoWars is still banned from X as of Sunday. Yeah, I didn't think that was going to come back. I've heard other creators say that it is back. I do not believe that it is back at this point, or if it is back, then people are not actively posting on it. Believers in Jones' conspiracies would go on to harass and threaten bereft family members, in some cases physically confronting and accusing grieving parents of being crisis actors whose children never really existed. According to reports from the Associated Press, some of these targeted had to move from their homes multiple times and could not safely visit the graves of their loved ones. Yeah, some of those are called feds, by the way. Sandy Hook victims' relatives sued Jones in Texas and Connecticut, winning nearly $1.5 billion in judgment. More than Jones could ever feasibly make in a lifetime, by the way. Against him, Jones sought but did not receive personal bankruptcy protection to try to avoid paying more than $1 billion of that judgment. Users of Elon Musk-led X social media platform had anticipated the reinstatement of Jones since at least Thursday, when Musk said he would reconsider reinstating Jones. Well, since the platform aspires to be the global town square, permanent bans should be extremely rare, Musk wrote in Thursday's post. Musk confirmed the reinstatement on Sunday after launching a poll on X that garnered nearly 2 million votes, over half of which favored reinstating Jones. Musk said Jones cannot break the law, but that if he does spread misinformation, X's community notes feature will correct him. Jones's first activity on the platform in over 5 years was to repost a welcome back message from Andrew Tate, an influencer known for spouting misogynistic views online. The editorialization in this, by the way, is just horrendous. But you expected that coming off of this. And currently on trial for rape, human trafficking, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women in Romania. Tate has sued the accusers who made those charges. X has allowed Tate to monetize his account, and Tate has said that he's generated tens of thousands of dollars on X previously. While Musk, who is also the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, bills himself as a free speech defender, he has wielded his control of the X platform to suspend the accounts of perceived enemies and vocal critics there. For example, X suspends the accounts of software developer Travis Brown, a same-day private jet tracker account built by Jack Sweeney, and Aaron Greenspan, the founder of legal and public records database Plainsight. Well, Jack Sweeney was literally doxing Elon Musk. That's against the TOS. It's also against the law in most states. Under Musk's management, X has also sued a progressive watchdog group, Media Matters for America, and one of its staff, alleging defamation. The suit follows an investigative report, MMFA, published that said blatantly Nazi content ran on the social media network alongside ads for mainstream brands there. Which we talked about a couple weeks ago is also a bullshit story, but it is what it is, and they're going to go back and do what they are going to do. So, a lot of stuff moving, a lot of stuff happening with this, and really a lot of moving parts that go along with this. Now, with Jones, CNBC has pointed out one of the more important parts of this. There's not going to be a willy-nilly ban off of this. It's not going to be just the fact that he said something that pissed somebody off up on the higher up ranks of X, or the people who are funding X, controlling the media narrative of anything else, like he did with Darcy. Again, it's completely dishonest for CNBC to come out and tell you that this happened because of Sandy Hook, because it didn't. As long as he does not outright physically threaten anybody, and he spreads his misinformation, the community notes feature is there. And I've seen more of that getting used in both directions. I'm happy for that because there is a level of unbiased to this. I know that people come out and say that community notes is the most biased thing in the world, and that's all they do is they fact check Democrats. Well, I hate to tell you this, but Democrats lie more than Republicans do. So we have this out here. It is going to be interesting to see what's coming off of this and what kind of revenue that Jones can generate off of this. Now, I don't follow Alex Jones. I defend Alex Jones' right to freely speak. I'm not a big fan of Alex Jones. I don't care for his content. Just like I said, I just put out a video, and I've actually not made the announcement for putting out the video, but I just put out a video last night talking about boycotts and cancel culture. One of the parts of that video was the fact that even if I don't like something, I won't partake in the content. That does not mean that I will ever try to stop somebody else from partaking in that content. If you like Alex Jones, I encourage you to go back and watch InfoWars, to watch his program, to watch him scream and talk about what's going on in his mind and what he sees and how he sees it. Because it's something that you enjoy. It's something that you should partake in. Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, if he goes out, starts doxing people, or makes a physical threat or something, yeah, he's going to be back off the platform. But how much money do you think, by the way, especially given the fact that so many people were anticipating him going on tirades, how many people do you think are actually sitting out there watching just like they did with the Donald when he was on X? And there are probably still people that watch that account daily. That's what they do. They get up in the morning, They put Donald Trump's account there, and they probably got an auto clicker off there that just hits refresh, 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 refresh. Because then they can sit there, and they can watch it, and they can have it refresh, and they can be the first one to come out and say, he's gonna say something racist. Oh my God, he's gonna say something racist. I'm gonna be the first one to report on him saying something racist. It's gonna be evil. It's gonna be Nazistic. I'm gonna be the first person to call him out on it. I'm gonna be the first person to report it. I'm gonna be the first person to retweet it. And I'm gonna show the world how much of a racist he is. And there are probably dozens, if not hundreds of people watching Alex Jones's X account doing the same thing. And I mean, it serves up ads. Alex is gonna make bunches of money off of that. And I encourage him to do so. Even if I'm probably not going to watch the account. Elon, in what is telling me that this is partially financially motivated, Elon Musk's X is encouraging users to follow conspiracy theorist Alex Jones after reinstating his account. From Claire Duffy over at CNN. A day after Elon restored the X account of notorious right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and his website InfoWars. So, CNBC said that they hadn't reinstated InfoWars. CNN is saying that they have. The platform is actively promoting Jones' account to users, giving the fringe figure a major platform to air his deceptive and dangerous views. Because we can't write an article about Alex Jones without editorializing it. Conspiratorial posts from Jones' account appeared on Monday in the For You feed of some users who do not follow him on X. His account was promoted in some users' who to follow recommendations, and his name was promoted in X's top trending topics section. Musk on Sunday also elevated Jones's newly restored profile, which had 1.6 million followers as of Monday, by engaging with him in a live-streamed interview on X. They were joined by Andrew Tate, the self-proclaimed misogynistic internet personality who earlier this year was indicted on human trafficking. We know about that. Far-right conspiracy theorist Jack Posobiec, and proud Islamophobe Laura Loomer, and Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Because of course Vivek was there. Why wouldn't he be? Musk's promotion of Jones is just the latest example of how the social media platform formerly known as Twitter and its billionaire owner are increasingly elevating fringe, extreme, and potential harmful viewpoints because, of course, this is CNN. And we can't write an article without editorializing. And by the way, this is not an op-ed either. Like, this is the language that would go in an op-ed, but you can see up on the top here. This is not an op-ed. This is an actual, what they're calling a unbiased, middle-of-the-road news article that is full of op-ed language. Since Musk took over the platform last year, he has also restored the accounts of other controversial figures, including prominent election deniers and far-right and neo-Nazi figures. Jones is perhaps best known for spreading false conspiracy theories about the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. After Jones' continuous airing of false claims about Sandy Hook, victims' families said they were threatened and harassed by people who followed Jones. A jury last year decided Jones should pay nearly $1 billion in damages to families in a defamation case. Of course, again, with him banned on pretty much every social media platform, except for the far-right platforms, BitChute, Rumble, etc. I don't know how exactly they expected him to make that kind of money so they could pay off this lawsuit. Now, as far as this goes, again, the question is whether or not he'll be eligible for the blue check and monetization, which I believe he does have a legacy blue check as of this point. But as far as monetization goes, if Elon's pushing people towards that particular account, he's waiting for people to go back and engage and comment. Because every time they do, somebody else wants to go back and argue, and that's two people to see an ad right then and there. So this is all about the money for Elon. I can tell you right off the bat that's for that. And Alex is probably going to get a decent chunk of that too, which may help him with the massive lawsuit. During the Sunday conversation, listened to by millions of users, Musk allowed Jones to lie about his harassment of the families of Sandy Hook victims, with Jones falsely claiming he was just asking questions about Sandy Hook massacre. That conversation also peddled conspiracy theories on a range of topics, including climate change, globalists, the ones who are putting chemicals in the water. I'm sick of them going out putting chemicals in the water, treating the freaking frogs gay, and government censorship. The Jones and InfoWars accounts will be subject to X's policies, and the platform will not monetize the accounts by running ads on them. Okay, that answers a question earlier. According to a message from X to its advertising customers that was provided to CNN by Head of Business Operations Joe Benerhock. That's probably a stupid thing to do. I'm not going to lie, that's probably the dumbest business decision I've heard coming out of Elon at this point. And I like most of what he does, but he's also pulled out some doozies in that market. He absolutely has. But X has been haphazard at best in its enforcement of its own rules since Musk bought the company more than a year ago. The ADL and other online watchdog groups reported last year that hate speech has surged on X in the wake of Musk's takeover, which goes along with Reddit threads literally telling people to make fake accounts to say the N-word so they can say that hate speech has surged. That was a thing that happened, by the way. X's policies prohibit hateful conduct, including direct attacks and others, on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, caste, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. Musk and X have pushed back on the claims of rising hate speech on the platform, and Musk threatened to sue the ADL for defamation, a threat he later backed off on. So they're pretty butthurt about this over at CNN. I mean, again, you can tell this is not an op-ed, and you can still read the language. That sounds like an op-ed. From Politico. Look at that. Elon Musk has made X/Twitter a better place already. Civil rights lawyer quits X after Alex Jones returns to the platform. From Kira Frazier. Prominent civil rights lawyer Sherilyn Ifill, who I've never heard of, is abandoning X, formerly known as Twitter, following the announcement that Elon would be reinstating conspiracy theorist Alex Jones' X after a 5-year ban. After encountering a post mentioning the life and memory of Anna Grace Marquez Green, a first grader murdered in the Sandy Hook massacre, Ifill said that she took it as a sign to quit the social media and post solely on threads, where nobody will see it. Alex Jones tortured these families who suffer the unimaginable, Ifill posted on Sunday on X. He has monstrously led a campaign of gaslighting and assault on the spirit of Sandy Hook families and desecrated the memory of those murdered children. He is a ghoul. His return to the site completes its utter degradation. We're at a war for the human soul. Got a song for that. Are you ready? You want to hear it? Oops. Give me just a sec. A little bit of technical difficulties because we have way too many tabs open. Again, I remind you, Elon has probably taken the trash out at this point. He's definitely made X a better place. Ifill, a former president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, has been a staunch gun control advocate. I'm sure. Ifill said, with the return of Jones to the social media site, it cannot be a place where I put my energy, my ideas, my plans, and my joy. Okay. Now, of course, Ifill, and we go back to the video I just put out last night, Ifill wants to make sure nobody can enjoy X. Instead of just walking away and saying, okay, I'm not going to put my time and energy into that, which I encourage. You have freedom of association. If you don't want to go there, then that's all the better to you. Don't go. But as with most leftoids, they don't because they don't have control over the site anymore. They don't want anybody else to be able to enjoy it either. Just know that we created something amazing here. It was so good, they needed to destroy it if KTZed. So, well, if this is a person who has been spammed into your feed, then that's something you no longer have to worry about. Alright, we do have to keep moving along off of this. I want to talk a bit about this Texas case that just popped up over the weekend. What the propaganda is behind it and what's actually happening with it. So we start today from CNN. Texas Supreme Court rules against pregnant woman seeking abortion as she leaves state for procedure. From Ashley Kilo and Ed Lavandera. The Texas Supreme Court on Monday reversed a lower court's ruling that would have allowed for a woman to obtain an abortion under the state's medical emergency exception hours after the woman's attorneys said she had left the state to have the procedure. Kate Cox sought the abortion after learning her fetus has a fatal condition, and doctors told her she could risk her future fertility if she doesn't get the procedure. A state judge ruled last week that Cox, who was 21 weeks pregnant, could terminate her pregnancy, but the Texas Supreme Court temporarily put the ruling on hold late Friday. On Monday, the Center for Reproductive Rights, which represents Cox, announced that 31-year-old mother had left the state to get health care elsewhere following what the group described as a week of legal whiplash. Then hours later, the state's high court ruled against her. The ruling calls into question whether the decision could deter a woman in similar situations from seeking the court-authorized abortion. The center did not disclose more details about Cox's plans, but its statement said Cox receives offers to help her access abortion elsewhere, from Kansas to Colorado to Canada. Cox's attorney said she wants her care the fastest way possible. Caught in a legal limbo on Thursday, the state district court sided with Cox and granted a temporary restraining order against the state so she could legally have an abortion under the state's medical emergency exception. Texas has a nearly complete abortion ban with narrow exceptions. AG Paxton quickly threatened criminal prosecution against doctors or hospitals who helped facilitate the abortion, saying they could still face charges after the 14-day temporary restraining order expires. That in and of itself, I would actually call a legal gray area because, and this goes along with the idea, like, when I talk about the fact that you can go down into, like me, I can go down into Minnesota right now, get absolutely baked out of my fucking gourd, completely. And then go back to Wisconsin, not under the influence, of course, because driving under the influence is still a crime, but get myself back to Wisconsin, no matter how baked I am when I come into Wisconsin. They can't do anything. The authorities can't do anything about it because I committed the crime in Minnesota. And I could do the same thing going down to Illinois for the same reason. I could go get completely out of my mind baked, smoke more weed than I've ever smoked at one point at a time in Illinois, and have somebody else drive me back to Wisconsin again, because driving under the influence, you can't do that. That's illegal. But have somebody drive me back to Wisconsin, and there is not a goddamn thing a state trooper can do about it, because I partook in both instances in a place where it was legal. Now, if I carried a little bit of ounce back across the border, then they get me for trafficking, of course, but that's obvious for there. But if the restraining order is in place, that would be in an illegal gray area where whether or not Paxton could do anything about it. But that's completely beside the point. So what they are not telling you about this so far, and I have not read down into the article to see what it like. I do know what's going on with this and what happened with this, and I have read into this. But the baby, and I forget the name. Let me check. There's one place I want to go look here real quick, because I can grab it out of the Discord. Let's see. Is it in... Did I put it in articles? Because we actually had a short discussion about this in the Discord. And I looked up the details of it at the time. But I mean, we're down to the second or third topic in this CNN article. And nobody has said a word about why this is a non-viable pregnancy, or why it is that she was in such a hurry to run back out and get the abortion. That is all the way back into November. We don't want to do that. Okay, so the baby is diagnosed with trisomy 18, a genetic disorder that causes low birth weight, birth defects, and specifically in fine motor, but it also can result in miscarriage or stillbirth. At this point, I would actually say that this is a eugenic abortion, but there are some other avenues to go with this. Now, the way the Texas law goes through, I mean, this is not at the time, a direct life of the mother thing, not a life and death situation, which would have put Cox into the exception range. The baby, from what I understand, and I talked to somebody in another Discord server talking about somebody who knows people who have given birth to babies with this trisomy 18 genetic disorder, and I mean, your baby is pretty much not going to live beyond a week. You can still give live birth to the baby. And from what I understand, the odds are that you do give live birth to the baby, but it's in pretty much constant torture and pain from the moment it first breathes air on. But this also, again, this would not fall under the life of the mother exception. Viable pregnancy, that I think is a gray area, honestly, with the disease that it has. But CNN is going out of its way to not tell you that this is trisomy 18. They don't want you to go back and look up and see what trisomy 18 is. So you can see that the majority, even if it is a short life for the baby, the majority of time, it's not putting the mother's life in jeopardy the way that CNN is trying to frame this. But furthermore, and again, with this law in Texas in place, this seems like another one of those situations to me. And I've seen a lot of these situations come off of this before where Katie Cox feels the innate need to say that she did it. She defied Texas law and she did it in her state. The second she found out about trisomy 18, she could have been on the goddamn plane or on the drive to go to New Mexico, Colorado, Illinois. Well, Illinois, I think would probably be a bit of a drive. But any other number of states around that would have facilitated for this. And again, there were plenty of people that were coming out here and saying, hey, be the poster child for abortion. Come to my state and do this, and be the poster child for defying republicanism. She had to do this in her state. And that is something that's something that really, really bothers me about this. Outside of the fact, again, of the argument of whether or not you could actually consider this a viable fetus or not. Cox's lawsuit is believed to be one of the first attempts in the country by an individual seeking a court-ordered abortion since the Supreme Court overturned Roe last year, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. The medical emergency exception in Texas allows for an abortion if the mother has a life-threatening physical condition while pregnant or has a serious risk of substantial impairment of major bodily function. Critics argue the statute is too vague and has a chilling effect on doctors who fear criminal prosecution, which again this seems a little bit more like the point of this, to actually get this out and litigate it against, rather than try to save the life of the mother or let the poor baby rest in peace without having to go through being born into this. The same legal group representing Cox, the Center for Reproductive Rights, is also representing a group of women and physicians before the Texas Supreme Court in a lawsuit seeking clarity. The state argues the law is adequate. In a ruling late Monday, the Texas Supreme Court, comprised of 9 Republicans, called the state's medical board to provide more guidance in the medical emergency exception that's at the heart of Cox's case. Mind you, I mean, can you see the cursor on the screen? Yes, you can. We are halfway down this article, and they still have no mention of what trisomy 18 is. Because that would probably go against the narrative that's trying to be pushed here. I had to legitimately, on Saturday when I found out about this, go looking for information on this to figure out what the hell was going on. The High Court also released an opinion saying it should be up to doctors, not judges, to decide whether to provide an abortion. It said that Cox's doctor did not establish or attest that Cox's symptoms were life-threatening. No one disputes that Ms. Cox's pregnancy has been extremely complicated. Any parents would be devastated to learn that their unborn, fatal condition diagnosis. Some difficulties in pregnancy, however, even serious ones, do not pose heightened risks to the mother. The exception encompasses, the opinion states. The exception requires a doctor to decide whether Ms. Cox's difficulties pose such risks. The ruling continues. A doctor asked the court to pre-authorize the abortion, yet she could not, or at least did not, attest to the court that Ms. Cox's condition poses risks the exception requires. A separate case is still pending before the Texas Supreme Court seeking clarity on the medical emergency exception. Notably, in its opinion, the court called on the Texas Medical Board to provide further guidance to the law. Can I say that on YouTube? I honestly, even though Mogwai said it, I don't know if I can say that on Twitch. Given the business model of that platform, I don't know if I can say that out loud there. It's a good point, and it's one of the big problems that I say when I talk about the fact that there's no true politician that could go out and be trusted to have an actual abortion ban, because they're always going to have carve-outs for their kids and their donors. And their donors' mistresses. Because it's not a religious thing. It's a by-the-votes thing when they do it. Let's be realistic. Alright, here we are. 2/3 of the way down the article. Additionally, the fetus has trisomy 18, sometimes called Edwards syndrome, which is a fatal genetic condition that can cause heart defects and other organ abnormalities. In at least 95% of cases, fetuses don't survive full term, so pregnancies can end in miscarriages or stillbirth, according to the Cleveland Clinic. Paxson argued that Cox has not established her symptoms as to meet the life-threatening criteria in the law. The filing from his office stated that Cox inquired about getting an abortion only after learning her fetus might not survive the pregnancy, or long afterward, and already knew she might need another C-section before her current pregnancy. So, yes, 2/3 of the way down the article. Long after people stopped reading, which most of them came out and just shared it out because of the headline, they finally explained what's actually going on in this. Now, if I was writing this article, that would have probably been in the first paragraph. This woman has a fetus with trisomy 18. We don't know if it'll survive the pregnancy or not. And if it does, it'll live a tortured life. Because that can give you the ability to make an actual reasoned decision off of this. And some people will still say all life is precious. And some people will say, let it die. With dignity. And I'll be completely honest, I don't know where I would stand on that one. That would be a difficult one for me. I've heard very compelling arguments for both directions of that. Beto, bro! Beto O'Rourke weighing in on this one. We don't have to, I don't think, listen to this one here, but the 9 Republicans, bro, on the Texas Supreme Court just told Kate Cox that she'll have to wait to get the life-saving abortion she needs until they decide what she and other doctors can do with her body. They're torturing this woman, brah. Not really, because she went out of state for it. Which she always had freedom to do, to cross the state lines. Yeah, I know you did, Mokwai. But I also know how Twitch is. So, that is the Katie Cox saga in a nutshell. I know we only really used one article off that, but this is the kind of thing you're going to start to see too. Again, with the freedom to go to California, Colorado, Illinois, places like that, these women, the activist ones, are going to seek to do this. And the ambulance chasers are going to go start looking around, trying to find women who have these specific niche cases so they can make a broad sweeping law over a couple niche cases and try to get this suit out of oblivion. It's going to make things interesting, I can tell you that. Let's talk about Zelensky. First, the funding bill from the Hill. Senate Republicans block Ukraine and Israel funding bill from Al Weaver. Senate Republicans on Wednesday blocked a bill to provide aid to Ukraine and Israel over a lack of border provisions in the measure. The aborted feti were all killed by fentanyl, according to DeSantis. Yes, they sniffed it right up out of the carpet, right through the woman's stomach, in fact. Senators voted 49 to 51, failing to reach the 60-vote threshold. That would allow the proposal to come up for consideration. Bernie Sanders voted with every Republican against the measure, which is surprising. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer flipped his vote to no, so he could bring the bill up again in the future, so it wasn't completely dead on arrival. If it's bipartisan no, that means they can go back and rewrite it and bring it back down to the floor again. The $111 billion of your money, by the way. The government doesn't have any money. Anything that they have, they've taken from you. But you all know that already. Emergency supplemental package requested by President Biden also included aid for the Indo-Pacific region, as well as funding for humanitarian aid in Gaza, the border, and to combat fentanyl trafficking. Despite their support for most of these items, Senate Republicans have insisted for weeks that they would withhold their votes for the motion to proceed if the bill did not have satisfactory border remedy attached. Jim Langford of Oklahoma and Chris Murphy of Connecticut had led border discussions over the past month, but those languished last week before Murphy and Democrats walked away from the table, arguing Republicans were asking for too much. The situation has upset members on both sides. Why hold up Ukraine aid if they can't even present a border package that can pass the Senate? Schumer said on the floor earlier on Wednesday. We're asking ourselves this question: has border been nothing more than an excuse for the hard right to kill funding for Ukraine? And too many other Republican senators who are not a part of the hard right are going along. He said, I hope that's not true. Forgetting, of course, again, the fact that Bernie Sanders voted against it. Senate Republicans, meanwhile, have accused Democrats of not taking their concerns to heart when they've made their positions clear all along. I don't think they're taking us seriously enough, said John Cornyn earlier this week. It may take a failed cloture vote for them to realize that we're serious and we're prepared to do that, which I've been saying this for the past 5 years at this point, on one-off videos, on live streams, on other people's live streams, and everywhere else. When the government's in gridlock, I'm a happy guy. While Senate Republicans are supportive of border action, part of their incentive to attach it to supplemental resides across the Capitol, House conservatives, many of whom are skeptical of Ukraine as it is, say a border fix is prerequisite to their votes. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to say right off the bat, that actually goes against what I believe we should have for any government spending bill. Remember me, the guy right here who says that single line, single subject, no pork. And yes, the border protections, as much as I encourage them, as much as I want them to be out there, in this situation would qualify as pork. So as much as I like the outcome, this actually goes against my beliefs of how the Senate and the House bills should work. Mike Johnson told Senate Republicans last week that as much of H.R. 2, the House passed conservative border proposal, should be included as possible. Senate Democrats have labeled the items included in H.R. 2 a non-starter. Talks between the two sides have centered on asylum and parole, with the group making progress on the former item. But just as they did so, progressive members and activists cried foul and warned the Democratic negotiators against significantly curtailing asylum and parole claims. The Senate GOP, however, has framed the argument through the lens of national security and have been intent on keeping the focus on border security, rather than immigration, which Democrats prefer. Senate Republicans know this isn't an either-or proposition. We know that national security begins with border security, the Turtle Man Mitch McConnell said on the floor on Wednesday. I've spent months highlighting the undeniable links between the threats that we face in Europe. Senator McConnell, are you okay? Yes, where was I? In the Middle East and in the Indo-Pacific. But Democratic leadership appears to be telling us today that they're willing to risk each of these urgent priorities to avoid fixing our own borders right here at home. Which, yeah, we've known that for like 20 years. That's not news. That's not the article. That's the name of the paper. Tensions also ratcheted up on Tuesday during a classified briefing when a number of Republicans left early and were visibly upset after it became clear that there was to be no discussion on border security and that the briefers were there to talk about other items in the supplemental. So, regardless, that bill is dead. May come back down to the floor at some point in the future, but it is right now DOA dead on arrival. But that hasn't stopped Comrade Zelensky from coming in with his little tin cup out. Oh, please. We'll sing for weapons and Ukraine aid. Mogwai says, sorry, Ukraine, but Israel's the country we care about now. You don't go home empty-handed. You get a Janssen Sports book bag, a pair of BK Night light-up sneakers, and Double Dare home game. You know, before you said Double Dare, I actually thought that this was going to be Legends of the Hidden Temple. You guys remember that show? I loved Hidden Temple. From the Associated Press, with Ukraine aid in peril, Zelensky pleads his case on Capitol Hill and at the White House. From Lisa Mascaro, Stephen Groves, and Amr Madani. His country's future at stake. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky used inspirational words, an optimistic resolve, and a nod to Christmas. I'm about to cringe myself to death, aren't I? You can tell me. You can spoil this for me. I just looked at this article because I replaced one article with 3 other articles right before we got started, because the one I pulled up yesterday when I set everything up was talking about that Zelensky was going to meet with the president on Tuesday. Well, now it's already happened, so I pulled this again literally minutes before we got started, and if you want to spoil it for me, you can spoil it in the chat. Mitch McConnell's buffering again. Can we get an AI that works? The Lindsey Graham bot keeps trying to get the interns to stick him. Lindsey Graham. But after hours of talks on Capitol Hill, additional American support appeared in grave doubt as Zelensky arrived at the White House to huddle with President Brandon. The U.S. has already provided the Ukraine $111 billion since Putin launched his grinding invasion more than 21 months ago. But Republicans are insisting on linking any more money to strict U.S.-Mexico border security changes that Democrats decry. Well, if you wanted unanimous support, you should have got more people out to vote. The White House is warning that if new money isn't provided by year's end, it will have swift consequences for Ukraine's capacity to hold its territory, let alone take back land captured by Russia. I could go right down my theory on what's actually happening in Ukraine, but you guys have heard it 7,000 times since the invasion. I still don't think that they're actually out to take Kiev and Ukraine. But I think that they just want... Well, I think that the Donbass region petitioned to have independence, and when Kiev told them, hey, fuck off, then they said, please, Mr. Putin, our government is tyrannizing us. Help us. You're our only hope. Help us, Obi-Wan. You're our only hope.
Do you believe in Santa Claus?
Biden, speaking in an early evening news conference with Zelensky, warned that failure by the United States to provide Ukraine further aid would embolden Putin and other aggressors on the world stage. Yeah, that's Bushism 101 right there. And of course, we have to fight him over there, so we don't have to fight him over here. But Putin is banking on the United States, man, failing to deliver on Ukraine. Hey, you remember Putin, man? That's the guy that Hillary said took the election away from her. You don't want that guy to win, do you, man? Come on. We must prove him wrong, man. Come on, man. Earlier meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office, Biden called on Congress to do the right thing, to stand with Ukraine, and to stand up for freedom. He added, Hey, man, Congress needs to pass the thing, man, before the Jill, what holiday's coming up? Before they give Putin the greatest Kwanzaa gift they could ever possibly give him. Hey, man, just what the hell is Kwanzaa anyway? Zelensky made his own case during his brief White House appearance with Biden in his private meetings with congressional leaders that Ukrainian forces might have fought fiercely to push back the Russian invasion with the help of American and other Western allies, and it's no time for Ukraine's friends to step back. Well, again, like Mogwai pointed out, Israel exists. Mogwai's got the Biden impression down. I'm meeting with who? And isn't he the guy that killed Kennedy? Where's my ice cream, man? Merry Easter. I see a bunny, man. It's telling me not to talk to the press. Sure is big. 80 million votes, folks. Zelensky made his own case during the brief White House appearance with Biden in his private meetings with congressional leaders that Ukrainian forces have fought fiercely to push back the Russian invasion with the help of American and other Western allies, and it's no time for Ukraine's friends to step back. Look, this fight we are in is fight for freedom, Zelensky repeatedly said in the meetings on Capitol Hill, according to lawmakers. Meanwhile, more than 130 senior lawmakers from across Europe signed a letter urging U.S. lawmakers to continue their support for Ukraine. Bitch! You guys have your own pocketbooks. Open them up if you really think that it's the most important thing. Holy shit. So he's out there. Tin Cup is out. We've got some updates on this as well. We'll grab one from CNN right away. Abandoned Ukraine and all of Eastern Europe is under threat. Exiled Belarusian opposition leader warns U.S. Did they just have a book of Bushisms sitting out there? Like, are they sitting out there? I'll use the Diablo strategy guy here as my prop. We have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. I mean, it does have George W. right on the front, so it works. If we let Saddam get his way, then all the rest of the Middle East is under threat. I mean, the next thing we fucking hear is going to be WMDs. The exiled leader of Belarus's democratic opposition is warning the United States that it's abandoning Ukraine in its fight against Russia, and its president, Vladimir Putin, would threaten the security of all of Eastern Europe. Belarusian people and Ukrainians are facing the same enemy, in spite of the fact that Belarus is an ally of Russia. Imperialistic ambitions of Russia, and we have to fight sentiment together. I'm not making this name up, by the way, when I say this. This is actually the name that's in the CNN article. For those of you listening on the audio platform, you can't see this, but the people watching on the video stream can. Svetlana Shikhanuskaya. I'm not making that up. That's actually what they're saying that this woman's name is. That is like if AI was tasked to say, give me a stereotypical Russian name for a woman. Yes, Svetlana Sikhanuskaya. Holy crap. Told CNN's chief national security analyst Jim Sciutto. Without free and independent and safe Ukraine, there will be no safe Belarus. Why? You're under the protectorate of the Kremlin. But also vice versa. Without free Belarus, which you haven't had in 50 years, there will be constant threat to all neighbors in whole of region. Sikhanuskaya's husband was imprisoned after announcing he would challenge Belarus's longtime leader, Alexander Lukashenko, in the 2020 presidential election. She ultimately ran in his place in an election widely considered fraudulent. See, we can question that election. And yes, I know legally we actually can do that on YouTube here for the 2020 election, honk honk. But I know what's going to happen again once we get close to 2024 and they decide to bring out the censors again. I know a lot of people are taking advantage of that right now, but they're going to have a lot of videos retroactively banned. Sikhanuskaya fled with her children to Lithuania in the same year, after Lukashenko's government, with aid from Russia, forcefully stamped down pro-democracy protests. Sikhanuskaya said that she has few details about her husband's safety in prison, sharing with CNN, "I haven't heard about husband since March of last year. Lawyer is not allowed to visit him, letters are not delivered, so I am not sure if he is alive." So again, yeah, we definitely have to fight them over there. Otherwise, we'd have to fight them over here. Or something like that. The Mogwai says, hey, if we don't fight Vlad over there, the terrorists will not stop. The next terrorist attack will be with fentanyl on Jesus. No lies detected. Alright, Tucker Carlson actually drawing the ire of a lot of people for saying what we all know is out there. I mean, they don't ever come out and say, yeah, do what we say or we're going to send your sons and daughters. They code it. But who goes and does the fighting? As cringy as they were in the 2000s, what did System of a Down say? Why don't presidents fight the war? Why do they always send the poor? Tucker Carlson with the X post that got fact-checked, by the way, community noted. The Biden admin is openly threatening Americans over Ukraine. In a classified briefing in the House yesterday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin informed members that if they don't appropriate more money for Zelensky, we'll send your uncles, cousins, and sons to fight Russia, pay the oligarchs, or we'll kill your kids. Readers added context they thought the people might want to know. Context. Austin warned Congress Tuesday that if lawmakers fail to pass more aid to Ukraine, that it very likely will lead to U.S. troops on the ground in Europe defending NATO allies and other countries and Russia may target next. Where do the soldier class come from, folks? It's not the rich people going out and doing it, I promise you that. Elon Musk also weighing on this. He really said this? And Tucker said, he really did. Confirmed with, again, the community notes out there. The Daily Costs, which is a propaganda rag that is not green check verified. Carlson turns a sober warning of Russian threat into false claim of extortion. From Mark Sumner for Daily Costs. Speaking before Congress on Tuesday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned the House Foreign Affairs Committee that failing to stop Russia in Ukraine could mean much greater costs in the future that included the possibility of deploying U.S. troops to Europe should Putin invade a NATO ally. Which I don't think that he's fucking stupid enough to do that. Even if I am completely wrong and his entire intent is to make Ukraine Russia again, even if that is his full intent, which again, I don't believe. I think he is. I think the Donbass region petitioned and said, hey, Kiev is fucking us over. Can you help us out? We like you better anyway. But even if I'm completely wrong about that, and he steamrolls over Kiev after the US money pulls out and starts looking towards the border of Poland, you gotta remember, he's got US nukes, and English nukes, and German nukes, and Spanish nukes, and French nukes, and Italian nukes, all pointed right the fuck back at him. Republican representatives present at the event seemed to get it. As the Messenger reports, House Foreign Affairs Chairman Michael McCall understood Austin's warning. If Vladimir takes over Ukraine, he'll get Moldova, Georgia. No, he will absolutely not. Maybe the Baltics. McCall said following the briefing, he noted that the idea of more troops on the ground in Europe was what we're trying to avoid. However, by Thursday, fired Fox News pundit and Putin supporter. Oh, Jesus. They actually said that. They actually said that. Tucker Carlson had distorted Austin's words into what Carlson insisted was an attempt at extorting further aid for Ukraine, writing on X. Carlson claimed that Austin threatened to send your uncles, cousins, and sons to fight Russia unless more money was handed over to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Not surprisingly, every word of this was a lie even Fox News has debunked. I'm gonna debunk. I'm gonna tell you again right off the bat that of course, Austin's not going to come out and say, oh yes, I'm going to send all the poor people over to go fight for the glory of Ukraine. But a reminder, where does the soldier class come from? So, that was that stupidity. Don't worry, we've got plenty more to go. I guess even if he doesn't get the aid, it's happened. Disclosed.tv breaking this first. Zelensky announces peace talks in Switzerland, likely on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Talk just a little bit about this because most of what we see coming off of this is unconfirmed. I'll deal with that later because I've got a cookie eraser. From swissinfo.ch. Switzerland to host Ukraine peace talks in January. The meeting on 14 January will be attended by the security advisors of several countries, the Swiss Foreign Ministry told the Keystone SDA news agency on Monday. The topic is the so-called Ukrainian peace formula to put an end to the Russian war of aggression. The Swiss Tages-Anzeiger newspaper first reported on the announcement, which was made by Zelensky on X, formerly Twitter, on Sunday. Zelensky says, I met with Luis Lascalpul, president, to thank Uruguay and people for supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ukraine is fighting tough battle against Russian invaders, while also working to implement peace formula. One of key political issues with this. I got this feeling that Donbass is going to become Russia by like February. Mogwai says, where did you sleep last night? You sleep on the couch? Nope. Debunk. Nice. Now, Russia is not giving any details about this, Reuters reports. Asked about peace talks, Russia's Lavrov says, Est Ukraine. No author given. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Sunday said that the West was trying to exhaust Russia in Ukraine, and that if peace talks were to take place, then Kiev would have to change its presidential decree. Yes, they would, by the way. That's absolutely correct. It is up to Ukrainians to recognize how deep they are in hole where Americans put them, Lavrov said of the war, which, that's, again, where's the lie? Americans promised them that they would keep throwing money and men and equipment. Although the men was after they said that they'd never send soldiers with their fingers crossed behind their back. Money and men and equipment. Until every last inch of Ukrainian territory was ripped from Russia's hands, including Crimea. Telling them that they just need to keep going because they can win this fight. And now that the money is starting to dry up because they don't have full Democrat control across everything, guess what? They're now in the hole. Excuse me. When asked what the chances were of diplomacy to bring a ceasefire or peace, he said, you'll have to call President Zelensky because a year and a half ago he signed a decree prohibiting any negotiations with Putin. And that's right, he did. So, I got this feeling he's going to come to the table with his tail between his legs and nothing to leverage on. And I hate to say it, but we're probably going to find out. Well, we may or may not find out pretty quick whether or not that was where I was correct. That the Donbass region was petitioning and saying, hey, Kiev is kicking our ass here. Can you free us over here? But the mainstream media is going to come back out and tell you that it never happened. That it was wrong and it's just Russian propaganda. But even if peace talks are coming and peace might spring up in Eastern Europe, don't worry, we have another front to fight on. And it's not China and Taiwan, oddly enough. We've got one here over from our friends at NPR. NPR, remember, hit that donate button because they're only 10% government funded. Which means that they need to add revenue and they need your donations to make sure that they get to tell you that Republicanism is bad. Especially if it's warmongering Republicanism. But warmongering from Democrats is good. And wars that happen under Democrat presidencies are good, and they're good for the economy. So hit that donate button. But make sure you also support the war effort and give whatever the Biden admin tells you to. What are we hearing in All Things Considered? Venezuela says it's moving ahead with plans to take over territory in Guyana. I've got no author given. Elisa Chang is host. Venezuela claims to be moving ahead with plans to take over a huge oil-rich territory in neighboring Guyana. The threats have drawn international concern. The U.S. announced joint military flight drills there. Because of course they did. Do you know why, by the way? Because there's a lot of oil there. And they don't want Venezuela to have it. Brazil is reinforcing its northern border, and the UN Security Council is meeting about it today, John Otis reports. Otis, for more than a century, Venezuela and its much smaller neighbor, Guyana, have bickered over where their borders should lie. And yes, by the way, this goes all the way back to 1899. At the stake is a jungle region called Essequibo that makes up 2/3 of Guyana's territory. To reassert Guyana's claim that this land, President Irfan Ali, along with Guyanese military officers, recently toured in a helicopter. They then raised their country's red, gold, and green flag, to which they pledged allegiance. The dispute over Essequibo was resolved in Guyana's favor by an international tribunal in 1899. But Venezuela rejected the decision, and ever since huge offshore oil deposits were discovered in Guyana in 2015, Venezuela has pressed its claim to the territory. And now the US, by the way, is pressing its claim to that same territory. The matter is now before the UN's International Court of Justice. However, Venezuela rejects the court's jurisdiction, and last Sunday it went ahead with a referendum in which voters approved a plan to annex Essequibo. Citing the results, Maduro, Venezuela's authoritarian leader, went on TV to propose a law making Essequibo the nation's 24th state. That would be a big state even for Venezuelan standards. Then Maduro unveiled an official map with Essequibo now affixed to Venezuela. Finally, he said, foreign oil companies in Essequibo have 3 months to get out so Venezuela's state oil company can move in. Guyana had better realize that by hook or by crook, we're going to settle this, Maduro warned. However, all this may be just political theater. Maduro is deeply unpopular at home, probably because he ran out of oil. Well, he hasn't run out of oil, he's just run out of oil money. Many Venezuela watchers say this bellicose statements are designed to drum up nationalist fervor ahead of his bid to win another term in the country's presidential election next year. But Mark Curtin, the political analyst at Georgetown, Guyana's capital, doesn't rule out some kind of military intervention by Venezuela. So, in case you were hungering for another front of war, we have one right to the south. And we're already flying helicopters over. In a turn of events, though, today, Guyana agrees to talk with Venezuela over a territorial dispute after pressure from Brazil and others. I got to imagine that was pretty much Brazil came in, which, I mean, Brazil is a first world country in South America, and a pretty powerful one at that, in spite of the fact that Hong Kong, Bolsonaro is not the president down there anymore. Hong Kong. Brazil is a pretty, I mean, they got a pretty big stick to throw around. So I've got to say that the new president, I forget his name, just went up and said, "Hey, ese, knock it the fuck off, huh?" The government of Guyana, under pressure from neighboring Brazil and a Caribbean trading bloc, agreed on Sunday to join bilateral talks with Venezuela over an escalating territorial dispute. The century-old dispute between the two South American nations recently reignited with the discovery of masses of oil in Guyana. Because of course they did. The government of Maduro, through a referendum last week, has claimed sovereignty over the Essequibo territory, which accounts for 2/3 of Guyana. Any agreement is likely to be hard-won, with flaring tensions on both sides. I have made very clear that on the issue of border controversy, Guyana's position is non-negotiable, Ali said on a national broadcast. So, they're going to sit down and talk about it, and I'm sure that there are going to be some people out there who have defense stock in our government, even though that could never happen. Oh, excuse me. War pigs. for Guyana to come back and say, push those dirty Venezuelans off your land. Well, it says, here comes Citgo, here comes Citgo, right down Hugo way. He's got a bag full of all kinds of weapons, and he's here to stay. Alright, let's go back to domestic side things here. Let's talk about Kevin McCarthy, which I thought was an interesting one to see. Ford News breaking. Former Speaker McCarthy, after announcing his retirement from Congress, had this to say. When you look at the Democrats, they actually look like America. God damn, that's a scary thought. When I look at my party, we look like the most restrictive country club in America. Why would you say that? And I'm not even kidding with you. There's video of this.
And when I look at the Democrats, they actually look like America.
No, they don't.
When I look at my party, we look like the most restrictive country club in America. And when I look at the Democrats, they actually look like America.
That was a stupid thing to say, by the way. That was a stupid thing to say. But from the Associated Press, McCarthy was booted as House Speaker 2 months ago. Now he's leaving Congress by year's end. And again, for those of you keeping score at home, with Santos out and McCarthy out, that means that the majority is only 2 at this point. From Michael R. Blood and Kevin Fricking. That fricking Kevin, I swear. 2 months after his historic ouster as House Speaker, McCarthy said Wednesday he's resigning and will leave Congress by end of year. His announcement capped a stunning end to the House career for the one-time deli counter owner from Bakersfield, who ascended through the state and national politics to become the second in line at the presidency until a cluster of hard-right conservatives engineered his removal in October. Well, they made a deal with him to get him elected, and he didn't hold up his end of the deal. I don't understand how you engineer a removal. He didn't hold up his end of his bargain. McCarthy is the only speaker in history to be voted out of the job. No matter the odds or the personal cost, we did the right thing, McCarthy wrote in the Wall Street Journal, announcing his decision. It is in this spirit that I have decided to depart the House at the end of this year to serve America in new ways. Word about McCarthy's future has been expected days before filing a deadline to seek re-election to the House, but his decision ricocheted across Capitol Hill, where his departure will leave the already paper-thin House majority even tighter, with just a few seats to spare. 2, by the way. 2 seats to spare. It adds to a wave of retirements in both parties as many members seek higher office or look to escape the partisan rancor that often paralyzes the chamber. Republicans have been split by infighting, and the rare expulsion last week of George Santos of New York, dashing hopes for major accomplishments and leaving the majority straining to conduct basic business of governing. Again, when the government is in gridlock, I'm a happy guy. When they're not doing anything, I got a big smile on my face. That's why I am a fan of Calvin Coolidge, not just paying lip service to it like DeSantis is. Because he didn't fucking do anything. You know, DeSantis will run. He is the most principled conservative that's ever run in the presidency, and a lot of my fans like him, and I don't know why. But he is so principled, and I have to say that he is my favorite former president on a debate stage. Meanwhile, most of us who are watching that and I said that while we were live streaming the debate. I said, Governor EO is supporting Coolidge of all people? Really? So McCarthy's out. GOP strategist Rob Stutzman talks about the impact of this. We're going to talk about this for just a moment. Republican strategist Stutzman joined Inside California Politics co-host Nikki Lorenzo to discuss the local and national impact of former Speaker's decision to retire. Let's listen to just a bit of this.
Learned this week Kevin McCarthy resigning at the end of the year. We spoke to the head of the California Republican Party prior to our conversation, and I asked her the question, how is this going to affect the races in 2024 and really California as a whole? You know, Kevin McCarthy was a prolific fundraiser. That was his reputation. Even though he says he's going to be involved, it's not the same thing when you're out of office and not holding that position of power.
Yeah, look, for the last decade and a half, Kevin McCarthy's been the most powerful Republican in California, and he has used that position of power to be the primary patron of the California Republican Party. He's been very involved in fundraising. Sure, I think he will continue to be, but you're never as powerful a fund.
Really? That's what you're going to do to me? Technical difficulties, stand by.
The resigning at
Used that position of power to be the primary patron of the California Republican Party. He's been very involved in fundraising. Sure, I think he will continue to be, but you're never as powerful a fundraiser as you are out of office as when you're in office. So I do think California Republicans are moving into a new era, a post-McCarthy era, but that doesn't necessarily, we don't know what it means yet. It doesn't necessarily mean that power will wane. There may be new people that step up into leadership roles.
How do you think this shakes out for all these close House races in 2024?
I don't think it specifically affects the close House races. They'll all be funded well. It could affect the Republicans' effort across the country. I mean, you do have to consider that McCarthy was a superior fundraiser to Speaker Johnson. It's a superior political operation that Johnson's now trying to take over. But look, in the margins, this could hurt the Republicans nationally on extending the map and becoming more competitive in trying to knock out vulnerable Democrats.
All right, so let's talk about his
All right, and I mean, he's not wrong off of this. But what I will say with this, and like McCarthy actually walked out the door, he is going to continue in fundraising efforts, and I'd like to see what it is that he does. I hope that he doesn't go the route of Ryan, who I will defend Ryan's record as a representative until the day I die. But the second he took that gavel and became the speaker, he turned into a horse's ass and then went off to be Mr. Lobbyist. I hope that McCarthy doesn't go down that route. I do. I hope that he can do more things on the ground. I know he is still, on paper, I think he's still a big Trump guy, and I do think that part of that is, I don't think he is in reality, but I think a part of that is the fact that he knows that it'll get him votes and support. Mogwai says, I see Nancy Pelosi sitting behind her desk doing the Mr. Burns finger thing, saying, excellent. Excellent. Smithers! Bring me my $10,000 ice cream. She's starting to resemble Mr. Burns. Weird. Vince Fong announces a bid for McCarthy's seat in California. Julia Mueller of The Hill. California State Assemblyman Vince Fong, a Republican, on Monday announced a bid for retiring Rep. McCarthy's House seat in the Golden State. It's my strong belief that the Central Valley must continue to be represented by proven conservative leaders in Congress. In light of recent developments and in an attempt to unite our community in this critical moment in our nation's history, I've decided to run for Congress in 2024, Fong said in a statement. So, because of the timing and because of California's bylaws, this seat is going to remain open until the next election cycle. Unlike Santos's, who will probably be filled before Valentine's Day. Oops, I got the wrong monitor up here. Fong had reportedly announced days earlier he would not run for Congress. He said in his latest statement, he initially thought the best way to serve his community after McCarthy announced his plans to retire was to continue working in the state assembly, but now he plans to succeed the former speaker. State Senator Shannon Grove, another Republican who represents the Central Valley, also announced hours before Fong's update she would not run for Congress. So, we'll watch that race closely to see what happens with that. More video here. McCarthy has a warning for Trump. Let's listen.
But McCarthy was on CBS this morning talking about Trump. He said that he would support Trump. He told me a couple of weeks ago something very similar. He said he would support Trump. I asked him as an official endorsement. He said we kind of hemmed and hawed about it, but he said he supports Trump. But he also had a bit of a warning for Trump.
What President Trump needs to do in this campaign, it needs to be about rebuilding, restoring, renewing America. It can't be about revenge.
He's talking about retribution day in, day out.
He needs to stop that. He needs to stop that.
Will Trump listen?
No. Definitely not, especially not to Kevin.
And Kevin is right. Again, if Trump is going to be up there, he needs to stop talking about, number one, and I've said this right from the beginning, he needs to stop talking about 2020. 2020 is in the past, and again, even if they go out and find enough votes out there were flipped that it turns into a 537 vote or electoral vote landslide for Trump in 2020. Even if a judge went through and hand counted every single ballot, went back and found out that every state, not even Minnesota, was able to come back out and carry this. The second Biden put his hand on the Bible and said, "Hey man, I promised to uphold the thing, man. And so help me." Well, you know what I'm talking about. As soon as he did that, the mechanism to change the presidency back to the second place runner-up, honk honk, for 2020 was gone. The only person that could succeed him now would be the vice president, unless she gets impeached the same way, or at the same time. And then it would be the speaker. There is no mechanism to go overturn the results of the 2020 election after Biden put his hand on the Bible. So Trump needs to stop looking at this, and he needs to stop going down the retribution route. I mean, it's red meat to the people who are already going to vote for him, but they're going to vote for, like, they'll crawl over broken glass to vote for him no matter what. Those people. But we need to start talking instead about plans to undo the ACA and actually get it done this time, even with Republican opposition, and build that wall, curb the illegal immigration, open up the supply chains again, get people back to work, stop sending jobs overseas, and stop business leaders from sending jobs overseas to make the Trump admin look bad. And what to do if we honk honk happen to find a totally legitimate virus in the middle of China that totally came out of nowhere in natural evolution to wipe us all out. Those are the things we need to be talking about, not retribution against people that have wronged you. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Kevin McCarthy off of this. And our last little bit on this one before we move on and talk about the debate. McCarthy endorses Trump, says he would serve in Trump's cabinet if he's the best person for the job. So we've got the in spite of the warning, we've got the endorsement. So we will watch this one and see what happens as we get closer to crunch time for the election. What else do we have? Let's talk debate. I have 3 different articles talking about the takeaways and 1 fact-checking, but I'm going to talk about some of the things that I saw in this debate as well. If Trump runs on revenge, man, this is what we might get on January 20th, huh? I thought my hand went over my heart, huh? That's still beating, right, man? I swear allegiance to the flag. What are you talking about, Jill? All right, let's talk debate. Let's get rid of some of these off here so we free up some of the memory in this rig. I do need to do a RAM upgrade, but we got to get through the holiday season first. Definitely have to do that. The Wall Street Journal, 5 takeaways from the Alabama debate. Let's see what theirs are. Apparently I can't do that because I'm a moron. I didn't archive this. Let's see if somebody archived it before me. Yes, it was archived 5 days ago. Thank you, random internet archiver person. John McCormick and Alex Leary. Haley's Republican nomination rivals attacked her for being too cozy with American corporations during Wednesday night that showcased her ascent in the race and the party's sharp populist turn. By the way, right, because I take my watch off while we do contemporary, just in case I get an alert or something on there. So you guys usually can't see it up here because my arm is usually down here, but you can clearly see it. If you ever go back and watch the live on the Instagram, the live replay there, you can see clearly where my watch would be. So if any alert ever popped up, you would actually see it pop up on the Instagram live. So I typically take my smartwatch off before I do contemporary. So between the time that I took my watch off and hit the live or picked up my phone so we could set up the Instagram stream, I got a text message from the Nikki Haley campaign team, which I didn't have a chance to get to because I was we were already live and in the waiting room over on OBS. So I will be reporting that as spam to Verizon. The cringiest moment. I love all the attention, fellas, Haley said to 3 men who joined her on the stage. Thank you for that, and that just gave me a horrifying mental image. No, Graham, he isn't talking about your kind of RAM update. All right, Wall Street Journal's 5 takeaways. Haley's called a corporate puppet. The fact that Haley's ties to corporations, once closely aligned with the GOP, brought attacks from DeSantis on and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, shows just how populist the party's become. Ramaswamy, who himself is close to being a billionaire, hit her for wealth as she accumulated, serving on corporate boards, and suggested she's a puppet for the puppet masters. Well, they know that if she goes into office, she's going to start a bunch of wars and boost their stock. So, one hand washes the other. But that's nothing new, again, for all the same candidates. And even the Donald in 2016 and 2020 was the same way. While most of the billionaire class had moved on to Biden because mummy and tweets, there were a few big billionaires that are on this list that were still backing the big Don coming into 2020. Super PAC backing DeSantis started airing an ad Wednesday that features a comment from Jamie Dimon suggesting Democrats should support Haley because she has the best chance of keeping Trump from being nominated by Republicans. Reid Hoffman, a major Democrat donor who's the co-founder of LinkedIn, he gave $250,000 to the super PAC supporting her candidacy. DeSantis tried to slow Haley. Yeah, that's the big takeaway from this. And that's part of the reason, too, you watch the moderators, we're trying to push Haley and DeSantis into arguing with each other because Vivek and Christie are not running for the presidency. I don't know if you know that or not. Christie is going full scorched earth and trying to make sure that the populist movement is so tainted that nobody would ever vote for it again. And Vivek Ramaswamy, I am telling you right off the bat, once he is out of the race, he's going to launch some product or service targeted at being non-woke, and he's going to say, hey, look, okay, you can vote you can vote with your wallets, okay? You can go give your money to some big woke corporation, or you can give it to me, who took down Nikki Haley and who took down all the rest of these people. So why don't you come out and buy my product or service? He's advertising. He's got $1 billion in assets. He can afford to go back and run a joke campaign for the presidency to get name recognition. Christie's still on the stage waiting for a question. DeSantis needed to cut into Haley's momentum and try a more aggressive approach, attacking her on China, immigration policy, and gender issues. Still, he was put out the defensive early by Megyn Kelly, who noted how DeSantis was once seen as the clear alternative to Trump, but has now lost that status, with Haley battling him for second place. Yeah, and that's what this is. This was the battle between DeSantis and Haley for second place. Trump gets the attention. That was great. And Christie ended DeSantis' career last Wednesday, by the way. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. Christie ended DeSantis' career. I saw it. Hey, look, man. Why don't you come out here and answer the question? You asked a direct question. Do you think Donald is fit to be the president? And you should have said no right off the bat, because I hate Donald Trump. But you couldn't go out and say no. Why couldn't you? You had to go dodge around it. I know why he dodged around it. I know exactly why he dodged around it. Because if he attacks the orange deity of the MAGA movement, they don't come out and vote for him. And whatever his next bid is, whether it be for the Senate, whether it be for the House of Representatives again, or even as Trump's vice president. Whatever it is he does next, he doesn't have the support of MAGA. If he goes and insults their orange deity, he knows that. His brain-dead followers don't know that, but he knows that. He knows full well that he needs MAGA to win any political office he ever wants again. He's well aware of that fact. That's why he won't attack their orange deity. Meanwhile, Christie has got a kill list in a book. Christie's got a notebook at home that kind of looks like Ray Finkel's notebook from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I hate Trump. I hate Trump. Die, Trump, die. I hate Trump. I hate Trump. No, the ugly thought is Nikki Haley snowballing. And you have to wonder whose load it is that she's snowballing back into his mouth. Trump hasn't paid a price in the polls for his absence and has limited his exposure to tougher questions on Tuesday. In a Fox News forum, the former president refused to rule out using the power of the office to get even with enemies, saying instead he would act like a dictator, or he wouldn't act like a dictator, except for one day, to enact tougher border controls and open up the more domestic oil drilling. Christie and Ramaswamy fight for attention because nobody was paying attention to them because, as I mentioned before, the fight was between Haley and DeSantis. Well, we know it's someone foreign. Thank you, Mogwai, for that disturbing image. Ramaswamy airs conspiracies and personal attacks. And by the way, there is a new meme template out there. Somebody's already blanked this out. And people have already started using it. And by the way, I don't care what you say, it's hilarious. That was Wall Street Journal's takeaway. CNN's takeaways. We'll gloss over this one. DeSantis and Ramaswamy versus Haley. The clearest sign of Haley's rise in the race, her opponents made her the center of attention during much of the first hour of the debate. Dude, Haley's career is over. Except for diehard people who want the wars to go on, Haley's career is over. DeSantis waited all of 30 seconds into his first answer before he took aim at Haley, pulling her into dispute over which bathrooms transgender people should be able to use. And in his first response, Ramaswamy continued where he left off at the third debate, targeting Haley for her time serving on the board of Boeing. Christie, the simp. We disagree about some issues, and we disagree about who should be president of the U.S., but we don't disagree on this. This is a smart, accomplished woman. Simp. Christie gets his groove back. No, Christie went scorched earth. That whole second segment, by the way, I remember we talked about this during the debate. Christie didn't get a single question that whole second segment. He didn't say a single word. He who should not be named. After watching his three rivals squabble for the debate's first 17 minutes, Christie tried to reframe the debate with a reminder Trump is currently vastly outpacing all of them in the polls. I've got these three guys who are all seeming to compete with Voldemort. He who shall not be named, the former governor said, referring to the Harry Potter series villain, whose name characters avoided saying. They don't want to talk about it. Christie suggested other candidates are avoiding taking on Trump directly because they don't want to hobble their own chances of becoming his vice presidential nominee or their 2028 presidential prospects. That's it. It's not about the vice presidential nominee. It's about the fact that, like I said with DeSantis, they can't win without the voters who are loyal to Trump. And they know it. All three of them know it, by the way. Even if we conclude that Ramaswamy is actually running for the president, not trying to sell something, he knows he can't get the votes without MAGA. Christian Ramaswamy, go to White Castle. The culture wars come in. DeSantis' war on woke took a backseat during the first three debates. We'll have to say goodbye to Instagram here. I'll go for a little bit longer, but we just hit the 15% warning. This time, however, he used two domestic culture war issues: environmental, social, and corporate governance, or ESG, investing in transgender rights, to aid his efforts to paint Haley as a moderate, which she is not. She just doesn't care to go on the culture war. She would rather talk about another crusade into Israel and the Middle East. And Ramaswamy unloads a string of conspiracy theories because why not? It's CNN. And GOP presidential hopefuls target Haley more than Trump in other moments from the debate. I'm going to skip their takeaways. We've talked this thing to death, and we talked it to death while it was going. I called this Goofballs on Parade for a reason when I titled the live stream for the debate the other night, because that's what it was. Goofballs on Parade, with Christie actually probably winning the night. Possibly ending DeSantis' career. My thread on this whole thing. So if that's the best we have to put forward, this country is fucked. But I'll thread a bit of my take. Chris Christie went scorched earth. He maintained his I hate Trump line, but he was intent on taking the other three with him as his campaign goes down in flames. He got to RDS and that was spectacular. For those who missed it, Christie was right. RDS was avoiding calling Trump unfit because he figured out a while ago that without MAGA, his career is over. He's not going to insult Trump voters or their deity, and he's smart not to do so. My other takeaways: if Haley's ever in the federal government again, she already has her war targets picked. Listen to her words. We'll be on a full-scale war with Russia, China, Hamas, Iran, and probably North Korea by 2028, and maybe Mexico. And, well, as of what's happened over the weekend, now possibly Guyana as well. And yes, Vivek is not running for the presidency. Vivek is advertising the same way Elon did when Hollywood was still relevant. He's paying a bunch of money to get where people's eyes are glued, appealing to MAGA, so he has a captive market in Trump's fan base. Got a couple more things. We are going to have to call it, though, because we are at 1:45, and we've got to do things I like and things that I hate. But before we do, I want to talk just a bit about what happened here. I got a back-to-back pair from CNN. And one from ABC, because Iowa is in focus. So here is one of the more controversial things that's happened over the course of this political season. Casey DeSantis calls out-of-state voters to participate in the Iowa caucuses. Let's listen.
Yesterday, the DeSantises were on Fox News, and that's when Casey made this call out to mamas and grandmothers all across the country and said, look, you don't have to be a resident of Iowa to participate in the Iowa caucuses, and called on them to descend upon the state. And that was her exact words.
When the governor was reelected, we had a coalition of 1.1 million mothers and grandmoms in the state of Florida. We're asking all of these moms and grandmoms to come from wherever it might be, North Carolina, South Carolina, and to descend upon the state of Iowa to be a part of the caucus, because you do not have to be a resident of Iowa.
Okay, first thing I'm going to point out is, do you have any idea how far it is from Iowa to South Carolina? I do. I know how far it is because I can be in Iowa in 20 minutes. And the caucus is happening in Des Moines, which is out closer to central Iowa. I can be in the corner of Iowa in 20 minutes. From where I'm sitting right now. It's a very sparsely populated part of Iowa, but I can be there in 20 minutes. And from here, it is 17 hours to South Carolina. In driving. And of course, if you want to get your plane tickets, I mean, you got a month in advance to go and do this, but you got to fork over the money to do that. You couldn't have said Illinois or Minnesota or North and South Dakota, maybe, which are, I mean, South Dakota touches Iowa. No, you had to go right for the Carolinas. You moron. Get a map, Casey DeSantis.
To be able to participate in the caucus.
Now, the participate in the caucus, I guess that's true depending on your definition of it. You are allowed to volunteer, to speak, to encourage, to persuade other people in Iowa on behalf of a candidate, but obviously you can't vote or have your voice heard in the caucuses themselves. And the DeSantis have said this is obviously what they meant, that they didn't mean you could actually go to Iowa from Florida and vote. And Governor DeSantis tried to clarify those remarks later after she spoke. Here's what he said.
Obviously, you can't vote in the caucus, but you can help with it. They even let people go and speak on behalf of candidates. So they have all these precincts. So you may have people who really can speak strongly about our leadership that are going to come. So we're looking forward to doing that.
But
this is huge. This is the first time the special counsel.
All right, shut up. And yes, no, of course, you cannot go and participate in the caucuses in a way that'll actually sway the vote, like Casey DeSantis was hoping for. You do have to be a registered resident of Iowa to vote and make your voice heard in the caucuses. Yeah, go down, volunteer, bring cookies, sing Kumbaya for your favorite candidate. But once the voting comes down, and I will say again, this was veering dangerously close to calls for election fraud, which is why Ron had to get out and play cleanup for all that in one of the most awkward ways possible. Mogwise, our resident South Carolinian too. To be honest, you wouldn't have to worry about South Carolina voting in Iowa. We couldn't drive that far without driving into another car. Is that why you don't see any South Carolina license plates around here? Because I don't even know what it looks like, honestly. I might look that up while we're watching the video on things I like and things that I hate. Now, I've taken a lot, I've pushed a lot of heat against DeSantis. But I'll give credit where credit's due. He's right about this. As Trump's rivals push to persuade Iowans, DeSantis warns that he could fire up Democrats. Mary Alice Parks reporting. With just over a month until primary voting begins, Republican candidates campaigning in Iowa this weekend zeroed in on what they hope is one of their most effective arguments against the frontrunner, former President Trump, his electability. Both Haley and DeSantis told Iowans that they worry that Trump cannot win a general, which that I don't know, against President Biden, while voters looking to make their final choices drill down on policy specifics from those still in the race. He's right. That's going to be one of the hardest parts to this, and I pointed this out too when I talked about DeSantis and shenanigans in the primaries. I made a YouTube video, one-off video about that. By the way, you guys can go back through the channel and check out the one-off videos that I do. I don't put those on the audio platform, but you guys can go back and check those out. Just click on the little spiral globe right underneath the video that you're watching if you're on YouTube. And if you're on one of the other platforms, you can go check that out, youtube.com/jedgar101. You can go and hang out over there and check out the one-off videos. But even if they can't honk the primaries, or make them messy enough, or even if the Donald gets the primary nod and then all of the Haley camp and all the DeSantis camp go in and forget about their feud and jump in and say, yes, we're all in for Trump, anybody but Biden, because we've got to get everything going. You are going to see ad campaigns and protests and people guarding the ballots, screaming at people that are going into the ballot boxes. You are going to see a temper tantrum the likes of which you have never seen before. And honk, 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 a bunch of other things that are probably going to be banned from being said on YouTube come the end of 2024 into 2025. Honkity honk, honk honk, honk honk, honk honk, honk honk, honk honk, honk honk. Just to make sure that he never becomes president again. But one of the things that I will point out when it comes to Haley or DeSantis is the fact that these people are obsessed with power. And Big Don, for all of his faults, made a threat to that power. But they also figured out what was going to work. So they're going to use the same rhetoric against Haley, against DeSantis, against Christie, against Ramaswamy. They're going to use the exact same rhetoric. They might not be able to use the age aspect of it again. But they're going to do the same thing because they found out that it works. So they're going to take the Trump name out of there and they're going to put DeSantis or Haley. DeSantis is a Nazi. They're already trying to do that one. Haley is a Nazi. Ramaswamy is a Nazi. I'd love to see that one go over. And they will drive it out like that. All right, let's do some things I like and some things that I hate. McNog19 joined on Instagram is going to miss the video that we're about to watch on things that I like and things that I hate. Actually, before we do that, let's do the rules of acquisition. Will be our start for this one, because we've skipped it for the last couple weeks. The last time we did rules of acquisition was the 235th rule of acquisition. Duck. Death is tall. Protect yourself, protect your assets, and make sure that you are still alive to make profit, as the Ferengi go. And just a background for those of you who don't know, who are new here, the Ferengi, a fictitious race in Star Trek, who built their society on hyper and ultra capitalism, have written their commandments, 400 of them, on how to address business between themselves and between other species in the galaxy. As an ultra-capitalist myself, we go over one of these rules once a week, except for the last couple weeks when I forgot and didn't prepare them, how it applies in canon and how we can use it in real life, if it's applicable. Some of them are not actually applicable in real life because they're horrifically misogynistic, because basically the showrunners were trying to make fun of capitalism. But most of these we actually can apply in real life. The 236th rule of acquisition. You can't buy fate. That's right. You can make all kinds of profit. You can earn all kinds of gold or latinum or currency, whichever currency that you can use. You can acquire all the possessions in the universe. But when that Buick is running off the road and its brakes fail, and it jumps the median and plows into your living room, you're just as dead as if you were poor. No matter how much platinum you have. Now, you might get better medical treatment off of it, but pretty much once that Buick hits your living room, you're done. You're toast. So, one of the things to take away from the 236 rule of acquisition is that it's one of the reminders to enjoy what it is that you have, because you can't take it with you. Now, in the Ferengi religion, of course, you can use your acquisitions and your use of the rules of acquisition to buy yourself a better life, your next life, because they believe in reincarnation. But what you have here, you can't take with you. So enjoy it while you can, because you can't buy fate. It's the same as beware the man who doesn't take the time for umox. Alright, let's do some things I like and some things that I hate. Things that I like! Guys, I watched a movie this week. This past weekend, actually. I got home Sunday night. I was off on Monday. I had to fold some laundry, and I did it, and I watched a movie. On the recommendation of the channel, by the way. I had actually not heard of this movie before. It was a later Robin Williams film from 2006 called Man of the Year. And it has interesting parallels, by the way, to what's actually happening politically, especially Hong Kong. Nothing actually happens with Dominion. Dominion is perfect and could never, ever alter a vote. Hong Kong. But if it could, in a completely alternate reality, where things that actually happen in the world actually never happened, in a complete alternate situation out there, this is actually probably how it could turn out, especially if somebody went out and caught that. And, I mean, I'm not going to give a lot of spoilers for this, but if you haven't watched this movie, and you've slept on this movie, go watch it. It's really good. It's free on Amazon right now, too. So, like, if you want to go back and do it, and you've got Amazon Prime, you don't have to do anything extra. Just search for Man of the Year and watch it. But the basic premise is a political commentary. Like me, if this channel ever got more popular. Like, if I got to Matt Christensen numbers, or Styx numbers, and commentary, and people were watching me every day, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people every day, and I decided I was going to go run for president, this is probably how it would go out. Let's watch the trailer for Man of the Year.
They should be changed frequently, and for the same reason.
Tom Dobbs was the biggest name in fake news.
More and more people are watching your show, Jon Stewart, Bill Maher, for news. How crazy is that?
Until the day he decided to stop going for laughs
Maybe you should run for president.
and go for votes instead.
Tomorrow, I will officially announce my candidacy for president. Brace yourselves, people. It's now time for the campaign.
From Barry Levinson, the director of Rain Man, Wag the Dog, and Good Morning Vietnam.
He's in the debate. You want to know my history, basically? I did inhale because I thought, what the hell? It was lit. It's in my hand. I'll inhale it. When I was a young boy, I used to look at pictures of naked ladies. I just farted a little while back there. If any of you wanted to ask.
He's not a puppet.
I support hydrogen cars. It's weird because you're backed by oil companies. And if you're representing special interest groups, maybe we should be like NASCAR. Little patches on the back. Enron. We take your money and run. Smackdown.
He's not politically correct.
4 million illegal aliens are crossing the border with bedroom sets and night tables.
He's a one-man party.
You don't have to have an amendment against same-sex marriage. Anybody who's ever been married knows it's always the same sex.
He sounds different. They don't know what to do with it.
But what started as a joke
Have you given any thought to what the makeup of your cabinet might be?
Well, I've always been a big fan of hardwoods like teak or mahogany.
is about to end up in the Oval Office.
At 1:23 East Coast time, the free world will now be led by a comedian.
Whoops.
You're going to be president of the United States.
In terms of appointments, there are roughly 7,000 to 8,000 slots to be filled.
Just off the top of my head, I was thinking Bruce Springsteen as Secretary of State.
A joke.
A joke. Little one.
From Universal Pictures and Morgan Creek Productions.
Eleanor, we're going paintballing.
What?
Follow me, men.
Robin Williams,
I'm out of ammo.
The president's just been shot. He's dead. Let's go round them up.
Christopher Walken,
Hit him again.
and Laura Linney.
Did you vote for me? No.
This fall,
The future is now.
it's definitely not
I did not have sex with that woman.
politics as usual.
I wanted to.
Man of the Year.
So again, if you slept on this movie, go get Amazon, go watch it. It's good. I was very impressed with it. It's a lot more serious than the trailer that's on. I will give it that, but definitely good. And honestly, when I even saw some of the clips and some of the ways that the debates went in the movie, I did think to myself, man, is this how the Trump presidency came about? Is this... Because this was 10 years before the Trump presidency. This movie came out in 2006. 10 years before the 2016 election. Is this how this came to be? I don't know. You tell me. All right, let's do some other things that I like. From the Dissociated Press, in one of the most hilarious headlines I have ever seen in my life. The NRA has a surprising defender in the free speech case before the Supreme Court. The ACLU is defending the NRA. You heard that right, by the way. In a case of politics making strange bedfellows, the National Rifle Association will be represented by frequent nemesis in the American Civil Liberties Union in an appeal before the U.S. Supreme Court. The New York-based Civil Liberties Group confirmed Saturday that it would provide legal representation for the gun rights group on its First Amendment case against New York's Department of Financial Services, even as it vigorously opposes nearly everything it stands for. You know they had to be saying this through clenched teeth. You know it, and that's what I love about it so much. The ACLU has spent so much time making life miserable for people like me, on top of it, making sure that we can get banned on YouTube and X and Facebook and everything else for having the wrong view. And they know that the government's in the wrong for this one. They have to do it through gritted teeth. We don't support the NRA's mission, or I can't imagine how painful it had to be for the ACLU lawyer to get up there and say this. Or its viewpoint on gun rights, and we don't agree with their goals, strategies, or tactics. The ACLU said in a statement posted on X. But we both know the government officials can't punish organizations because they disapprove of their views. How painful do you think that had to be for the ACLU lawyer? I am dead serious. How much do you think that had to hurt for those lawyers to get up there and put that statement out, knowing that their bread and butter is going to start screeching and crying bloody murder at them for the fact that they're doing this? That is the most delicious political avenue that I've ever seen take. And I'm here for it. Now, this would normally be something that I hate, but what I like about this is the fact that we were able to go, and the power of 4chan was able to come back out and determine who this was and get this sick freak fired. In 2012, a Burger King employee anonymously posted an image on 4chan of him putting his feet in lettuce with the caption, "This is the lettuce you eat at Burger King." And this, by the way, is why I'm deathly afraid of 4chan. And I always compliment the 4chan people whenever I can, because they scare the fuck out of me. It took 20 minutes for people to track down the branch the employee worked at and contact the news. The next morning, Cleveland Scene magazine contacted the Burger King establishment and talked to the breakfast shift manager, who, upon seeing the offending photo, said, "Oh, I know who that is. He's fired." 20 minutes it took them to figure out where he was. I mean, these people found Shia LaBeouf through cloud patterns. It pays to be a little bit afraid of 4chan. I do think that they have been infiltrated by the government and government agencies. I do believe that, honestly. And I think the actual legitimate ones know who the government agents are on there because they can go back and figure that out in a hurry. But these people, I mean, they just... It's scary, the efficacy and the efficiency that they go and figure this crap out in. It's terrifying a little bit. It sucks that this guy did this. It really does, because that is contaminating food that people, yes, probably did eat out of these bins before the next morning when they found out that this guy was they found out who this guy was and he got fired. There were probably dozens to hundreds of customers who came in through that day and had to eat off of this. But they found this and they got it stopped. And I'm glad for that. A couple more things that I like, and we'll do some things that I hate. One thing that I like here, again, usually I don't have to archive CNBC, but I've had to this time. Thankfully, again, Internet Sleuths did this before me. Ford cuts planned 2024 production of electric F-150 Lightning in half. Ah, Helix is here. Calling them something that's a term of endearment that I cannot say on YouTube, obviously. There's a major autistic power on the Chans, less than in 2012, though. Yes, that is true as well. Welcome in, Dual Helix. Now, the reason that, of course, this is on things that I like is because it's the market share at work, and Ford is realizing that nobody's buying these things. They're realizing quickly that nobody wants an electric F-150. They sell them here and there, and I know that there are a couple that are running around town here. I've seen them. I've seen at least two, because they're in different colors. But two in, I don't know, what is La Crosse? I don't know. I drive by the sign every day. I have no idea how big it is. City of what? 40, 50,000 people? 2 F-150 Lightnings in the entire city? Nobody wants the things. Oh. We gotta say goodbye to the Instagram feed because the battery of the phone is at 5%. So we'll finish that off. That just went dim like right in front of me. But this is the market share at work. Even with all the incentives, with all the bells and whistles, and all the tax breaks that they give you to go out and buy one of these things, people still don't want them. I've always said I am not against people driving electric vehicles. I will not personally buy one. It goes the same, just like I said with boycotts and cancel culture last night. I will not buy one myself. I will not stand in anybody else's way if they really feel that they need to go and buy an electric pickup truck. I think it's stupid, but I'm not going to stand in their way to do it. I never have, I never will. So, but the market share is at work, and now Ford is realizing this. They're cutting because of the market share, because they can't move these things. And if in 2024, if there's a honk big uptick in economy, and people are like, hey, I want to buy a brand new truck and I want one of these, and they get a bunch more of orders in for them, yeah, they will probably go back and double up on their vehicle cap for it. But they made the product available. The people that wanted one bought one. The people that didn't want one didn't buy one. And now they know how the market cap is going, how the free market is supposed to go. And the last thing I like before we go back and do things that I hate. Judge allows 9,000 women to sue Disney for pay disparity. You remember that company that Variety was defending tooth and nail a little bit ago when they were feuding with DeSantis? Yeah. Now they're evil again because of women's rights. Now, I don't care one way or the other. If you've got a legitimate grievance, then absolutely. If you've got a legitimate grievance, go back and go out and sue. Even if you don't have a legitimate grievance, the courts will figure out who has a legitimate grievance and who doesn't, and they will rule accordingly. It's the way our litigious culture is. But Disney has been in such a wild ride with the leftoid media because they're evil because they're billionaires, but they're good because they do the DEI thing, but they're evil because they exploit their people, but they're good because they made our Mary Sue hero for Star Wars, but they're evil because they support this politician, but they're good because look at all the representation that they're putting on these shows. Look at all the people of color and the people of alternative lifestyles that they're putting on their shows. But they're evil because they're rich and they're billionaires. But they're good because Ron DeSantis doesn't like them, and we should give them tax breaks for being rich because Ron DeSantis doesn't like them. But they're evil because they're paying women less. Disney has been on such a wild ride, so to see them knocked back down off the top of the liberal media, that makes me laugh. Now let's do a couple things that I hate. So this one here comes to us from the New York Post. Which actually I'm going to refresh this because I know that there's video that went with this one. But a woman was arrested in Atlanta for trying to burn down Martin Luther King's birth home in Atlanta and stopped by an off-duty police officer. And it was a black woman that was trying to do this. And it kind of sounds like she's pretty pissed that she got caught, because if she hadn't been caught trying to commit this arson, you know what it is. You know what the narrative would have been right away. Evil white supremacists hate Martin Luther King so much they burned down his house. This was a white supremacist attack. I'm sure that the security cameras were off when they did this too, by the way. I'm sure. A woman attempted to burn down Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth home, arriving with a gas canister and dousing the historic property in fuel on Thursday. Video from the brazen attempt shows the woman dressed in all black, freely pouring gasoline on the home's front porch windows and bushes around 5:45 p.m. 2 tourists from Utah viewing the home were able to intervene to stop the suspect, police said. One witness recalled the suspect began to grow irritated after she was having trouble spreading the fuel around the property, according to Fox 5 Atlanta. The suspected arsonist was quickly detained by 2 off-duty NYPD officers who had been visiting the historical landmark and held her until Atlanta police arrived. The suspect has been charged with criminal attempt arson and criminal attempt interference with government property, and surprise, surprise, police have not released her name. This was supposed to be the hate crime that defined 2024 in the election. I guarantee it. I promise you. I don't think she was on crack or insane. I think she got hired to go back out and do this, to try to shape the narrative. I think this was deliberate. Yeah. Well, not necessarily a paid actor in the fact, like, they didn't want to get somebody on camera so they could make it be whoever they wanted it to be. The fact that she got caught and then got caught on camera on top of it too blows this entire narrative apart. Which is why they're not releasing the name, by the way. The home is in the care of the National Park Service, which acquired the property from the King family in 2018 and has been closed to tourists since November due to ongoing renovations. This was supposed to be the thing that shaped the 2024 narrative. Evil white supremacists burned Martin Luther King's house. I promise you. That's what this was supposed to be. Other things that I hate. Tennessee joining California in an attempt to decriminalize HIV transmission. Tennessee penalties for HIV positive people are discriminatory, DOJ says. Kimberly Crucy from ABC News. Tennessee's decades-old aggravated prostitution statute violates the Americans with Disabilities Act. The U.S. Department of Justice announced on Friday after an investigation warning that the state could face a lawsuit if officials don't immediately cease enforcement. Tennessee is the only state in the union that imposes a lifetime registration as a violent sex offender if convicted of engaging in sex work while living with HIV, regardless of whether the person knew they could transmit the disease. Civil rights advocates have long criticized the measure as discriminatory, making it impossible to find housing and employment due to the restrictions for violent sex offenders earlier this year. The American Civil Liberties Union and Transgender Law Center filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn the law in federal court. Now, I will give deference to not knowing. I mean, ignorance of the law is no excuse, but ignorance of what's going on in your own body, especially if you are engaging in risky behavior with other people. But if you knowingly do it, then yeah, you should be on that. You violated a person and you left them with a lifetime disease. You knowingly infected a person with HIV. Now, the bar for knowingly infected is a high bar to clear. I will give it that. But if you knowingly did it, yeah, you should be on the sex offender registry. That was a sexual crime. That you've inflicted a lifetime of pain on a person. Pain and treatments that are going to get more and more expensive as they go. How is that not a sex crime? How are you not a sex offender? So we will see where this goes, what the lawsuit does, and, well, whether or not who wins on the lawsuit. I'm sure that we have not heard the last of this one. We'll see what happens with that. I'm going to skip this PDF for now because it's a little bit lengthy and I want to go through it a little bit more. James Woods with a clip of Biden. He proudly promised the demise of the white race in America with a never-ending stream of immigration. You can't fault a politician when he promises something. You vote for it and he delivers. You got what you asked for.
I would argue it's unlike any other large country in the world. So there's a second thing in that black box. An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength. And so we have been, we haven't always gotten it right. I would argue it's unlike any other large country in the world.
On top of, Biden actually flaunting the great replacement theory that gets the rest of us banned on YouTube. Just white European stock. And the guy is such an unbelievable racist. And he gets a pass on it. He gets to be the president of the Democrat Party, who supposedly stands against racism. Alright, we're going to do one more and then we're going to head out of here. The last one, and the one that I hate the most because the terrorists win. KCRA 3 NBC reporting amid planned protests, Newsom won't hold public Capitol Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Thereby showing the pro-Palestinian terrorists that it works. Oh, I can't stand this. Just a brief read off of this one. With multiple protests planned near the state capitol, Governor Newsom has decided not to hold the annual public Christmas tree lighting live and in person as originally planned on Tuesday. Instead, the ceremony will be held remotely, and Newsom's office will provide a recording and stream on the governor's social media accounts on Wednesday. That's right. We can't go out and get a cup of hot cocoa. Although, I would have to ask Brew if she comes by here at some point. Do you get hot cocoa in Northern California? I don't know. Supposedly, they actually have somewhat of a winter in Northern California, so maybe. It's not like LA where it's 70 degrees and dry year round. You don't get to go out and meet new members of your community, new members of your state, have the gathering, have the cocoa, be there in what is typically, as much as I detest California politics and California culture, one of the bigger events in the country. And they're just going to shut it down because, hey, a terrorist might come back out and make an example out of the area. If you want to know the truth of it, what I really think is happening is Newsom doesn't want to get all the people out there and have a large gathering, or conversely, have a small gathering because, well, there's some unpopularity in California politics right now. Have a smaller than expected gathering and then have to explain away why there's so few people as compared to last year or the year before. So he nipped it in the bud and he just made it live stream only, which, I mean, I could sit here and pull up a YouTube video right now of a Christmas tree lighting up. And then watch the commentary, and I'm sure in California there's probably going to be some colorful language that's coming through there as the actual white supremacists battle out with the FBI agents trying to egg them on. But it's so sad. Even if we take this at face value, it's so sad to see that we're getting to this point in life. Well, we didn't even stop doing this for 9/11. It makes the guy sad. It really does. But as sad as I am, we're done. We're out of here. It's been an interesting one. Way too many tabs open, I can tell you that right off the bat. We got to start doing this multiple nights a week. Although, I don't know, something might be changing here in the near future. We might go back to morning show. I don't know. Everything is a little bit up in the air right now. We'll have to see what happens. But for now, let's throw some outro music up and head out of here for the night. Take one last quick look at the live chat here. Bull Moose Entrapment over on Kick has joined. I saw mumbling to Zelensky today, or maybe tomorrow they will announce E4. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Bull Moose Entrapment, by the way, for joining. That was just a couple minutes ago, too, so. Over on the Rumble side, I see Dual Helix says, have a great evening, sir, and let's throw the outro up and let's go. All right. Great stream. 2.5 hour stream, but great stream nonetheless. Thanks to everybody who came by and hung out on all the platforms. Remember, you can chime in on YouTube, Twitch, DLive, Kick, apparently. Thank you, Bull Moose, for coming and joining me over there, Rumble. And you can listen back. If you're just catching up now, you can listen back. You can find Contemporary with J. Edgar on Spotify, or you can check out the YouTube channel, J. Edgar 101. You can check the replay there. I do take the live stream down. So, and then re-upload a fresh video of it, so it's the recording instead of, in case we do get drop frames and stuff on the live stream. So there'll be a fresh video up come morning. You can go check us out over there. Check the replays out on Twitch, or listen on Spotify. You can check us out over there. We'll be back here next week for more news and more headlines and more contemporary. 6 p.m. Central Time. For that, you can join us on all platforms over there. Otherwise, Wednesday nights on this channel are dedicated to Final Fantasy X. We're going to be doing some more into that this week. We took last week off, obviously, because of the debates for Wednesday night. And Fridays are always Fallout Friday. Come and hang out for some of that. That's a fantastic time. Fallout is one of my favorite video games ever, and we have a lot of fun with that too. Get some nice colorful commentary in there as well. Both of those will be at 7 p.m. Wednesday and Friday Central Time, so come and join for that. Take care. Have a fantastic night. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary.